Today I'm speaking once again with California-based composer and native New Mexican Nicolás Lell Benavides. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
On Saturday the 24th, the New Mexico Philharmonic opens their next classics concert with a piece you wrote in 2024, Acequia. Can you first tell me just a bit about how this piece came to be?
Yeah, so this piece was commissioned by the Gabriela Elena Frank Creative Academy of Music. Gabriela is one of my favorite living composers, if not my favorite living composer, and she's been one of my primary mentors. And she commissioned me to write a piece exploring essentially climate and in any way that I felt like I wanted to approach it. And I really wanted to approach it from my cultural perspective, which was New Mexico, being from New Mexico, a state that goes through persistent drought, and then moving to a state that continues to go through drought, which is California. So it's been a constant in my life, and realizing the cultural connections to it. Like growing up, I grew up in the North Valley in Los Ranchos, and I helped my dad irrigate the land. And I thought it was such a chore to go out back with the big wrought iron wheel and open up the gate to flood irrigate his field. But I didn't realize that almost nobody else in the country irrigates that way. And everybody else has a different system of measuring water and using water on the land. And the beautiful thing about it, even though we're in a drought state, is that the flood irrigation actually serves an ecological function. It used to be a floodplain. All of the riverbank used to float over every year and fertilize the soil and give nutrients and give migratory birds a place to stop. And animals and the cottonwood trees would all reproduce because of the flooding. And so you're giving back to the aquifer. You're actually irrigating in a way that is with a shared resource. And most of the rest of the country doesn't do it that way. It's very first come, first served. If I get my water, I don't care if you get yours.
So we have a very deep connection to our local history then through the whole Acequia system.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and for this piece inspired by that system, I keep thinking of the Moldau. It's much like Smetana, how you're really tracing the flow of water with the music.
Yeah, it's totally. Yeah, it's actually, so my piece is seasonal. I was going to make a piece about just the irrigation starting from the Acequia system, the ditch. But then you can't help but think about the source, without thinking about where the system came from, which was the first form of government in New Mexico. What did we have that was scarce, that needed to be divvied up? It was water. And this still exists in a capacity today. We'd have a mayordomo, someone in charge who would measure the snowpack, get all the way up to the hills, and then sort of decree how we share this water. And that usually comes in cycles of irrigation, essentially how often and when you're allowed to irrigate and how much. And some years there's lots of water and you can irrigate 2 or 3 times a week. Some years, like last summer, I think my dad only got 4 irrigations, which is not enough to sustain crops.
Oh, wow.
And without supplemental water. And it's scary, but it's shared, right? Everybody shares the same burden when there's a drought year.
In the piece Acequia, there are some pretty interesting effects that you employ using water as well. Can you talk a little bit about what we're going to hear on Saturday?
Yeah, so I really wanted to bring water into the percussion section. I thought it's just a beautiful sound. I mean, to bring water on stage, I'm sure is scary for the production staff. But percussionists, as you know, are game for anything. So I give the percussionists some bowls of water, and they play crotales, which are like these metal discs that sound like bells. And when you dip them, they sort of change the pitch as the water sort of flows around them. And I use it to create this sort of ice-like effect of the snowpack before it melts. And in me, in this world, the music of Acequia is the music of fourths, which is very crystalline. It's beautiful, but very crystalline. It's locked in. As it melts, it turns into the music of thirds. So all these chords, traditional sounding chords and harmonies. And then when it gets into the aquifer, after it passes through us and through wildlife, it gets locked away again. It returns to music of the fourths. So there's sort of 2 phases of the water being locked, which is in ice and in the aquifer. And so the music's all about transferring from fourths to thirds back to fourths. And we get to see ourselves as part of a brief part of this water's life cycle, which could be millennia, right? Frozen away and then underground.
Well, Acequia receives its New Mexico premiere on Saturday the 24th when the New Mexico Philharmonic performs their next classics concert, also featuring music of Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff. Tickets and information at nmphil.org. Composer Nicolás Lell Benavides, thanks for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Always. It's always fun to talk about my music in my home state.